We can never get this moment back. We must seize it. I'm Jessica Denson, and this is Lights On. I want to welcome everybody to a very special edition of Lights On. I want to ask you all right now at the top to do two things. One, we are part of a movement here, so I need you to subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the Jessica Denson YouTube channel to make sure you get the most up-to-date scholarly information on Trump's disqualification. Number two, I need you to go to nowmarch.org. Nowmarch.org if you have been looking for a way to peacefully protest this illegal presidency and the steamrolling of our Constitution. This is how you can get involved. I am most certainly going to discuss more about that event, that peaceful, historic demonstration that I have been honored to be a part of bringing to the forefront. And so if you can please go now to nowmarch.org or put it in your notes, put a bookmark and remind yourself to go back there. This is where your resources are for the 14th Amendment. This is where you can take action and take your stand in history, not let democracy die on your watch. And that is absolutely the only thing that I am concerned in, laying out the stakes and understanding that if we pass this Rubicon, if we allow a constitutionally disqualified man to enter the presidency in violation of our founding document, all bets are off after that point. We are complete fools and living in a fantasy land to think that we can have any backstop from that founding document that we just violated if we totally steamroll it to allow him into the presidency. Now, if you are a regular viewer of Lights On, you have been getting the very best education from the best constitutional scholars our nation has on why Donald Trump remains disqualified, and you will continue to get it today. One thing that happened this week that I think you could have hardly missed is a major op-ed in The Hill by two other constitutional scholars that we haven't discussed before, Evan Davis and David Schulte. They were both clerks for former Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart. Evan Davis was the editor-in-chief of the Columbia Law Review, and David Schulte was editor-in-chief of the Yale Law Journal. They wrote this piece this week called "Congress Has the Power to Block Trump from Taking Office, but Lawmakers Must Act Now." I really was so gratified to see this growing chorus, not of capitulation, not of giving cover for Democratic lawmakers or any lawmakers, frankly, not to uphold their oaths and do their constitutional duty, but encouraging, imagine that, encouraging the requisite constitutional action of lawmakers on January 6th to reject the certification of Donald Trump's electoral votes as not regularly given. Now, this article, I've got to tell you, is so good. It's so good that I'm just going to read the whole thing to you today because it has a lot of misinformation correction that, as you know, I have been keen on pointing out on Lights On. And it has a lot of answers to questions and also some surprising play out of how this process would happen in Congress that I had actually not heard before this explicitly. So you're going to hear that entire article for me in just a minute here. I think it's absolutely worth your time. Now, I will note that this was probably the first thing to really spark a backlash from MAGA as to the disqualification conversation. And, this is the elephant in the room. People are afraid of these blusterous threats of intimidation. They're afraid of MAGA. And I'm just going to quote some, ridiculous things. We're not going to spend too much time, but Eric Trump responded to this op-ed. He said, "You people are sick." This is how he framed it. Let's just get this under proper context. He's framing people who want to uphold the rule of law, the sacrifices of generations of our veterans, of so many people who have put their lives on the line, lost them, sacrificed everything for this country and its progress and its march toward freedom. He is calling the people that want to uphold that founding document and not let freedom and democracy die on our watch sick. Okay, so anybody who gives any credence to Eric Trump, let's just clarify his realm of thinking. And then Elon Musk, another person that should be highly irrelevant, said such a crazy thing for them to say. Legacy media is just the propaganda arm of the radical left. Okay, yeah, from the multi-billionaire who bought an entire platform to sway an election. And then Stephen Chung, the caricature, grotesque individual who was Trump's spokesperson during his campaign, said, "Oh, look, Democrats want to steal the election and invalidate the will of the American people, threat to democracy." Well, let me just kindly and simply remind you that the reason that Donald Trump is disqualified from the presidency is because he led a deadly insurrection to deprive American citizens of the will, their own will. That is why he is disqualified. As I said last week, and as I've said many times, we won't be gaslit on this issue. We won't be gaslit on the proper function of January 6th to uphold our Constitution and reject electoral votes that are not regularly given, as I will explain in a moment here. So, this is some of the noise, some of the bluster, some of the, the manner of intimidation that would seek to threaten people from doing their job, to literally lay down. And those that have been preaching about Donald Trump's danger to this country, those who have been preaching about his status as an insurrectionist and why he should be nowhere near the Oval Office because he has threatened to terminate the Constitution, those people have been goaded in to standing down, to not having a, quote, appetite. I mean, this is literally what we're facing, that our lawmakers don't have an appetite to do their job. And that's why what I announced at the top that we're going to talk a lot more about is so vital. We must give them peacefully that appetite and show them peacefully that we will have patience and we will stand by nothing less. So, any kind of threats of violence cannot be capitulated to. My God, if we are in a position where our starting point is not even taking action because of a threat of violence, we are in a very, very, very dangerous place already. And we have absolutely no power, no dominion from that standpoint. We have essentially ceded all power if we start from that place of fear. Operating from a place of courage does not mean you are completely fearless, but it means that you build a wall of protection around you that comes with doing the right thing. And I just want to, one more thing before I read this article from David and Evan, is that remember how much conversation there was about all of the protests and violence and, these mass demonstrations that we expected when Donald Trump was indicted, when he was prosecuted in New York City at that trial, when he was convicted. Ultimately, it was like a blip. There was really quite a little showing of support for Donald Trump. So it's a lot of bluster. It's not something that we shouldn't take seriously, but it is absolutely not something that should deter the people, let alone the lawmakers who have sworn an oath to defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, from upholding their oaths and literally watching and enabling the downfall of our republic. They have no excuse, not to mention they all have a lot more protection in the purely material and physical sense of the word than the average American. So what an incredibly selfish thing to let our nation and its citizens enter this dark, dangerous period for all of us, and frankly, the free world at large, because they are afraid of their own personal safety when they have so much more to protect them than most Americans do. But they should not be afraid. They should take that courage. And like I said, you understand that doing the right thing comes with a spiritual armor. As I often talk to you about, that spiritual armor is everything. So let me read this piece to you from The Hill. It's so good. It's really unequivocal. and it gets to the point. I'll put the title up on the screen. It says, the Constitution provides that an oath-breaking insurrectionist is ineligible to be president. This is the plain wording of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. No person shall hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who having previously taken an oath to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. This disability can be removed by a 2/3 vote in each house. Disqualification is based on insurrection against the Constitution and not the government. The evidence of Donald Trump's engaging in such insurrection is overwhelming. The matter has been decided in 3 separate forums, 2 of which were fully contested with the active participation of Trump's counsel. The first fully contested proceeding was Trump's second impeachment trial. On January 13th, 2021, then President Trump was impeached for incitement of insurrection. At the trial in the Senate, 7 Republicans joined all Democrats to provide a majority for conviction, but failed to reach the 2/3 vote required for removal from office. Inciting insurrection encompasses, quote, engaging in insurrection against the Constitution or giving aid and comfort to the enemies thereof. The grounds for disqualification specified in Section 3. The second contested proceeding was the Colorado 5-day judicial due process hearing, where the court found by clear and convincing evidence that President Trump engaged in insurrection, as those terms are used in Section 3. The Colorado Supreme Court affirmed. On further appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, the court held that states lack power to disqualify candidates for federal office, and that federal legislation was required to enforce Section 3. The court did not address the finding that Trump had engaged in insurrection. Finally, there is the bipartisan inquiry of the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. More than half of the witnesses whose testimony was displayed at its 9 public hearings were Republicans, including members of the Trump administration. The inescapable conclusion of this evidence is that Trump engaged in insurrection against the Constitution. In particular, Trump unlawfully demanded that his vice president, Mike Pence, throw out votes in the Electoral College for political opponent Joe Biden, a power he did not have. While the riot was in progress, Trump used Pence's rejection of his demand to further inflame the crowd and cause them to chant, quote, hang Mike Pence. Some will argue that the Supreme Court decision in the Colorado case, Trump v. Anderson, precludes Congress from rejecting electoral votes when they convene on January 6th on the basis of the 14th Amendment disqualification. This view lacks merit for 3 reasons. Now, I just want to take a minute here because if you've been watching Lights On, you know that our reporting has come under attack. I'm not going to specifically address that today, but I will refer you to my other videos on the Jessica Denson channel. I stand by every word I said, and I strongly encourage you to go back and watch them. In particular, my interview from Monday with Evan Burnett, president and constitutional lawyer at Free Speech for People. So here they are, continuing to combat this misinformation that's out there. Number 1, first, the majority suggestion that there must be new implementing federal legislation passed pursuant to the enforcement powers specified in the 14th Amendment is what lawyers call dicta. Dicta are the musings of an opinion that are not required to decide the case. The holding that Section 3 is not self-executing may be an alternate holding, but thoughts about the kind of implementing statute required are plain dicta. Dicta are not precedential. The 4 dissenters strenuously objected to this part of the opinion as overreach to decide a question not presented. This overreach is a power grab, which Congress is not required to credit. I just want to take one more aside here. One thing John and I talked about, which is so essential, is why would we, in what is clearly a flawed and judicial train wreck of a ruling, to quote William Bowden and Michael Paulson, the preeminent scholars, when that decision, in spite of its wreck and awfulness, did not even preclude the actions that Congress can take, that we can take, why would the good faith Democratic congressmen preclude that action for themselves? Why would they foreclose the opportunity that this corrupt, compromised Supreme Court has not even foreclosed for them. Why would anybody in the so-called democracy space be providing cover for them to do that or suggesting that there is no pathway forward? Is that what we do when we're faced with the end of democracy? Say, well, it just our options here are not looking so great, and it looks like we have a very low chance of succeeding, so let's not even try. Let's not even try. That is what anybody telling you any other narrative than the truth about that decision and its implications is doing. Let me continue from the Hill piece. Second, counting the electoral votes is a matter uniquely assigned to Congress by the Constitution. Under well-settled law, this fact deprives the Supreme Court of a voice in the matter because the rejection of the vote on constitutionally specified grounds is a non-reviewable political question. Now, this is a really interesting point for a lot of people who are saying, well, they're just going to, if anything's done by Congress, it's just going to go back to this corrupt Supreme Court, and this corrupt Supreme Court's going to, say Donald Trump is the winner, said and done. Well, number one, if it does, put the Supreme Court on the record. Everybody needs to be on the record on this issue, but here is a suggestion that it can't even legally really go back to the Supreme Court. This is a matter for Congress to settle. Third, specific legislation designed for this situation already exists, to anybody saying we need specific legislation. The Electoral Count Act was first enacted in 1887 and later amended and restated in 2022. And that was, of course, the Electoral Count Reform Act that you've heard about. That statute provides a detailed mechanism for resolving disputes as to the validity of electoral college votes. The act specifies two grounds for objection to an electoral vote: if the electors from a state were not lawfully certified, or if the vote of one or more electors was not, quote, regularly given. A vote for a candidate disqualified by the Constitution is plainly in accordance with the normal use of the words not regularly given. Disqualification for engaging in insurrection is no different from disqualification based on other constitutional requirements such as age, citizenship from birth, and 14 years residency in the United States. To make an objection under the Count Act requires a petition. We've described this process before on Lights On, signed by 20% of the members of each house. If the objection is sustained by majority vote in each house, the vote is not counted, and the number of votes required to be elected is reduced by the number of disqualified votes. If all votes for Trump were not counted, Kamala Harris would be elected president. Okay, that's for anybody out there who says, oh, this process would give us President Vance. No. Here is an explanation of why it would fall to Kamala Harris, because she would have the clear majority of electoral votes when Donald Trump's votes were not counted. Now, the unlikelihood of congressional Republicans doing anything that might elect Harris as president is obvious. But Democrats need to take a stand against electoral college votes for a person disqualified by the Constitution from holding office, unless and until this disability is removed. No less is required by their oath to support and defend the Constitution. I want to thank Evan Davis and David Schulte for their bravery in writing that piece, as I want to thank every guest that I've had on my show for their bravery in taking a stand. I mean, it shouldn't have to be a brave thing. It should just be normal. And that's really what this show aims to do, is to normalize, not normalize misinformation and normalize outrage and normalize clickbait, normalize, junk and noise and nonsense and lawlessness, but to normalize the law, to normalize the right thing to do, to not make it so strange and out of bounds, to just do what our Constitution requires. So thank you very much to both of those constitutional scholars for stepping out, taking their place in history, not letting their expertise on this matter go unnoticed and putting their names on the record. I want to share a comment that was shared with me, and I'm going to share with you in just a minute the beautiful coalition that has come together to lead and organize this movement. But one of the people, I've gotten so much feedback just since last week. I can't believe, if you're new to this show, I literally announced 1 week ago on this show that I did not have the capacity to organize a demonstration or a protest on my own, although the suggestion had been brought to me many times. And to think that that was literally 1 week ago, and this group has come together of patriotic, beautiful, determined, purposeful citizens to make it happen is quite extraordinary. But one of the people that reached out to me said, will you please remind your viewers, and I'm happy to, that everyone currently in Congress, the executive branch and the judicial branch, has already sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution. They cannot assist Trump in taking office or even stand passively by without violating their oath. It might even be that to assist Trump, as the 5-4 SCOTUS ruling does in the Anderson case, and as do many members of Congress, is to, at the least, give aid and comfort to the insurrectionist and the continuation of the January 6th, 2021 insurrection. And it really is. And when you think that's from William LaRue, by the way, thank you, William LaRue. When you think about what we've been experiencing and that we had such a delayed justice process, it took over 2 years to bring indictments against this man for what he did on January 6th. And then to have that all thrown out the window. What a disgrace, what a dishonor, what a disservice, what an injustice to the American people, what an injustice to those officers who were put in medieval battle conditions on January 6, 2021, to the families of the officers who took their own lives in the aftermath of that, to the families of the Trump supporters who Donald Trump sent to their own deaths on that day. And that is another point that I want to make abundantly clear, is that any movement to hold Donald Trump accountable or keep him out of the presidency is not a retributive punishment for Donald Trump or his supporters, most certainly not his supporters. It is actually in their great benefit. Whether they see it or not yet, it is the greatest gift that anybody could possibly give them. It is saving them from learning the very, very hard way, in ways that people like I have learned, what a dangerous, deceptive, anti-American movement they are currently part of, or former president they currently support. So this is really a what blesses one blesses all movement. It is not against anyone. It is for everyone in this country, and for the health and safety and prosperity of every single one of us and our free allies and those who aspire to freedom around the world. To think that we would be letting them down, any of them down, in this moment, and the people in the power that have the opportunity, and it's literally laid out in the law for them. They don't have to stretch. It's right there in black and white, that they would not avail themselves of the founding documents of our precious nation. Unforgivable. Unforgivable. I'm going to put up one more thing that I put earlier this week on Blue Sky, because some people, I will tell you, I got mostly overwhelming support and feedback to my correction of some misinformation that, as I mentioned, I've already discussed. You can go back and watch it. There were a few comments that talked about not wanting to be divided in this space. You know, we're all on the same side. Don't criticize others in this space. Let's be unified. And listen, if we were truly all on the same side, I would be 100% on board for that. But here's the fact of the matter, and I say this because it's the truth and it needs to be heard. We are not all on the same side anymore. And I'm saying this because we need to all get on the same side. We really do. So I'm just going to read to you what I posted on Blue Sky. And by the way, if you're not already following me on Blue Sky, please do. I'm Jessica Denson 07. I basically am off Twitter now. most active on Blue Sky, and I'm putting a lot of, threads with the correct information and legal resources there, any important announcements. So it's the best place to get all of that is on Blue Sky. But what I wrote earlier this week was, generations will look back to this precious window of time as the defining line between freedom and fascism. Who stood up? Who did not? Tragically, the pro-democracy space is not aligned on the same side. Either you're resisting with every legal avenue right now, or you're contributing to our downfall. And I really mean that. I really mean that. And I care less about, the clickbait kings of YouTube than I do about our lawmakers in Congress who have sworn their oaths. And that's why I will be laser focused in that precious window of time to do everything that we can to make these individuals understand that they are making a choice. What they do on January 6th is how their names will go down in history. Another comment somebody sent me literally as I was jumping onto this live was this. It said, not enforcing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution will truly demonstrate an unwillingness to enforce the 22nd Amendment in 2028. Trump will never peacefully leave office. Jesus Christ. I mean, we don't need to call out Jesus Christ, but did you not witness January 6th? I mean, yes, exactly. I mean, to think that we can just cut out and abandon one vital, this is a vital section of the Constitution to prevent us from being ruled by someone who has zero allegiance to our welfare and to our rule of law and to our will to the will of the people as a democracy. And we think that we can abandon that amendment, but the amendment that says that there's a limit to presidential terms, that one's just going to go right, that one's going to be in place, and every other one is going to just be in place fine. Extremely, extremely naive and foolish. Everything, all bets are off after January 6th and January 20th. All bets are off. And I think we are incredibly naive as well to think that we're going to have a normal election in 2 years or 4 years. Anything resembling a normal election. Not saying that this election was normal. And if you've listened since my shows after the election and my independence from Midas Touch, you know that I have questions about that. But to think that we will have any semblance of a normal election in 2 years or 4 years if we allow Donald Trump to enter the presidency is incredibly, incredibly naive. So we have every reason, every single thing is on the line to simply do the right thing now. And I want to just I talked a little bit earlier about the phantom threat of Trump-led violence or MAGA violence, which I think is more of a specter than anything. And we have to be aware of it. We have to be wise. We absolutely, as I'm going to talk about before the end of the show, when we gather, we must not engage. We are peaceful. We are dignified. We do not have any tolerance for this, and we will not be confrontational at all. But let me just set some things straight about the amount of people that are actually for Donald Trump versus the amount of people who are on the side of upholding democracy. This is a poll, and you guys are all going to forgive me for the tiny font again. One of these days, I'm going to get some help and figure out how to make sure all my graphics are visible. But this is a poll from the Washington Post last week that asked, would you support or oppose the Trump administration doing each of the following? And the one on the question of issuing pardons for people convicted of crimes relating to January 6th, 32% supported that. 66% oppose. Now remember, Donald Trump himself was indicted for crimes related to January 6th. He is, as we described in that piece, an adjudicated insurrectionist. There is not a massive public appetite to excuse this man's behavior and sweep it under the rug. Taking even the election results at face value, taking them at face value, only about 33% of eligible voters voted for Donald Trump in this election. A third. So not even 50, not even 49, about 33% of eligible voters, taking into account all of the people that did not vote in this election. That's the numbers we're looking at. And that's right in line with that poll. 32% is the only support for pardoning January 6th insurrectionists, of whom Donald Trump is one, just disgustingly having evaded the law. So that's the national mood. Let's get this clear. That's the movement that we're dealing with. The movement is on the pro-democracy side. So on that note, I want to transition to telling you about 14th now. I got to tell you, I am this is very, very, very special to be part of this. As I mentioned last week, I put out a call to liaise efforts because I knew that if something like this were to happen, I have absolutely no experience or ability to do something like this on my own. And the response that I got was overwhelming and beautiful and patriotic and informed. And in 1 week's time, a group of individuals, just people, just concerned citizens who love this country and do not want to let it die on our watch, who are not willing to stand down and do nothing, came together and have organized a historic event from January 3rd to January 5th in Washington, D.C. Now, I need you again, I'm going to mention to go to nowmarch.org. Nowmarch.org. As we speak, the final details as far as where we will meet will be announced, or they're being finalized, and we will announce them shortly. But there is a Join the Movement button on this page. Please click on that, fill in at least your name and email and phone number so we have that, so we can forward you the information as soon as we have it. Where to come? We are planning on having a launch event on January 3rd. We would love for as many people to be at all of these events as possible in Washington, D.C. The point here is that we have to change that appetite, that so-called appetite of lawmakers to act or not act. We have to show them that we see them and that we are not going to let them off the hook. 100% peacefully, of course, but we have to show them in massive, massive numbers. So I need you to spread this like wildfire. And again, I will just say the word peacefully a million times. If I ever use any language that is implied otherwise, that is not my intention. I'm only speaking figuratively. This is 100% peaceful. You can use the hashtag 14th now, 14th now. Spread this, please, on any social media platform you are on. Share the website, nowmarch.org, with anyone you know. Try to coalesce resources yourselves to travel. We will do our best to get you any resources we can. We're doing everything we can to make this as an accessible an event as possible. We, of course, are notifying law enforcement of our presence, and obviously, safety precautions will be taken. So we really, really need you to spread this. We need to be like those countries like Romania and Georgia and the people that understand. You know, sometimes in America, we seem so comfortable. We seem so detached from how bad things can really get. And if we can just look around the world and see the bravery of people who are facing so much worse consequences than we currently are. I mean, we're about to be facing really bad consequences, but right now, this is our safe space. This is our precious moment. And people around the world have faced so much worse and put so much more on the line to put their bodies in the public and say, I am standing for something. I will not be ruled by a dictator. I will stand for freedom. I will not have my life and liberty so unceremoniously robbed from me. I have dignity. I have respect for myself and others, and I'm going to live and demonstrate who I am in that way by showing my presence fearlessly. If we can take a cue from the people around the world who frankly look to this country still, but almost no more, as a beacon of light and refuge, and have a little bit of respect and gratitude for that and for who we are, and show up, my God, we can change the course of history. We can change the course of history. And we should. And every single lawmaker should be reconsidering any appetite to not do what they need to do now. And I yes, it's on Democrats. And I put this very much on Democrats because they will be the ultimate hypocrites if they don't do what's right here. But you know, there are Republicans who have been desperate for years to come out from the grasp of Donald Trump. I mean, can you imagine the lives of these people? Can you imagine how miserable it must be to have the life of a Republican congressman or senator who has any kind of, is tethered in any way to principle or God, I mean, a real God or law at all, and to have to be a sycophant to this grotesque, embarrassing individual who is a puppet for foreign governments. I mean, how pathetic a life that must be for these GOP lawmakers. They too have the opportunity, and only 20%, think of that, 20% we can get with the Democrats easily. Just a few of these people, Chris Murphy, Hakeem Jeffries, Jamie Raskin, Adam Schiff, Richard Blumenthal, Bernie Sanders, any of these people have shown the spine in Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. I could go on and on. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jasmine Crockett, plenty of them that we admire, that have shown us such clarity on so many issues. We could easily get 20% of them in both houses to raise an objection. And then all we need is a majority. All we need is a majority to uphold that objection and reject as not regularly given, because they are not, the electoral votes cast for Donald Trump. It's not extreme. It's normal. It's normal not to install an insurrectionist convicted felon, Russian asset into our presidency. It's not out of bounds. It's really, really normal. So please, as I mentioned, nowmarch.org, sign up, stay tuned for details. Thank you so much, everybody, for being involved in this, for showing up. I mean, this has been to the black hole that is the mainstream media right now, and the sad, misleading information that some in the pro-democracy space have been giving. The audience that has come to Lights On and that has told me, my God, this is what I'm looking for. This is home. This is what we need to do, has been so incredibly beautiful. And I can only tell you that I'm honored and grateful to have given a platform to you. I'm so grateful. And I am not by any stretch a figurehead of this movement. This is the people. This is we the people. And I'm doing what I can to bring we the people together with other amazing people that are helping. So I'm sure they're all watching right now. I want to thank all of you, and you know who you are, for just being so there immediately on this effort in so many beautiful ways, ways that I can't speak to you about, but you know what I'm talking about. The way you have showed up has been truly divine. And that is to me also a sign that we're doing the right thing, and a sign of the protection and that shield, that armor, that spiritual armor that I talked about that is surrounding us. So please, everybody, go to nowmarch.org, sign up, tell everybody you know about this. Please, if you can, start to make arrangements to be in Washington, D.C. from January 3rd at about noon to January 5th. Make our presence known. Now is not the time for this, just for surrender. The op-ed that I have up on the screen from Jamel Bowie in the New York Times about a week ago. Now is not the time for surrender. And we have no justification to stand down right now. So I think that's pretty much it for today. I just want to leave you because it's Christmas and because I am a Christian and I have respect for whatever faith you adhere to or don't adhere to. But I want to share two things that are really special to me in the spirit of Christmas. One is something that I think about all the time when I see people not taking the stand that they should be taking, that I've been thinking about for years in the Trump era, when Republicans in particular have not done the right thing or have been scared to stand up to Donald Trump, or anybody, people in justice, prosecutors, anyone. And that is, "O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you?" We don't have to be faithless and perverse. We can be full of faith and understanding. To me, faith, it goes beyond faith. It goes to spiritual understanding. And that's inviolable. That space is inviolable. And if we act from that standpoint, we don't have to suffer the consequences of perversity, which we are about to suffer in unthinkable ways if we don't take this stand now. So that's one. The other one is, "Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made us free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage." Think about how they want to put us back decades, centuries, really. They want to put us backwards and to be entangled again into a yoke of bondage. Don't take it. Don't stand for it. We are free. And for me, doing this work, it's like I don't even, to anybody who calls me brave or thanks me for my bravery, which is, I obviously appreciate so much, and that acknowledgement is beautiful, but my spiritual upbringing, frankly, doesn't give me a choice in these matters. I don't really know how to act differently or approach these situations differently. So I'm really grateful. I'm really honored. We're going to be wise. We are 100% peaceful, and we're going to gather a movement to show the world what we're made of between now and next Friday. So stick with me, nowmarch.org. If you specifically want to support me personally and my work, you can do it at thejessicadenson.com/donate, thejessicadenson.com/donate. Another fun way, and I would love if you ordered merch and brought it along with you, is to go to thejessicadenson.com and check out some of my merch and order it. But most importantly, try to get yourself there. We're going to have some alternate ways to engage if you can't physically be there, and we're going to be sharing that information soon. But the ideal thing is to try to make arrangements to be in Washington, D.C. from January 3rd to January 5th. #14th now. I love you all so much. God bless this beautiful country of ours. God bless each and every one of you. Stay safe. Be free. And as always, my friends, let your light shine.